This is Anna's Nightmare, a journey through fear. Before we begin, if you are a fan of mysteries told in story format and narrated by myself, Mr. Mysteria, then subscribe to this channel, The Mystery Vault. Let's get to the story. Anna found herself captured in the clutches of a terrifying scenario in the middle of the night, the likes of which she had never experienced before. She was running frantically, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum of forthcoming doom. Fear gripped her soul as she sprinted through the never-ending expanse of a desolate hallway, her bare feet pounding against the cold, unforgiving floor. Clad in her nightwear, a simple white nightgown that rippled around her like a ghostly shroud, Anna's panic-stricken eyes darted wildly, seeking refuge from the horrific black wave-like creature that pursued her relentlessly. Her chestnut hair, usually neatly tied back in a bun before bedtime, now hung loose around her shoulders, tangled and disheveled from the frantic flight. The hallway stretched on endlessly, its walls closing in on her. Shadows danced menacingly along the corridor, and that sent shivers down her spine. Desperation fueled Anna's frantic race, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she pushed her body beyond its limits. But try as she might, the end of the hallway remained elusive, taunting her with its unattainable distance. Exhausted and on the verge of collapse, Anna's legs finally gave way beneath her, sending her crashing to the ground with a muffled cry of despair. As she lay there, trembling and broken, her gaze fell upon a faint glimmer of hope, a sign looming ominously in the distance. Anna forced herself to her feet, her eyes fixed on the sign as if it held the key to her salvation. With a final, desperate lunge forward, she reached out, fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool surface of a sign. And then, in that instant, darkness descended, swallowing Anna whole as she succumbed to the black void of unconsciousness. Then she awoke back in the safety of her own bed, drenched in sweat and trembling with fear. It was all a nightmare, and it was fading into the recesses of her memory like a haunting mumble in the night. It all felt so real seconds ago, and she could currently feel the stress, just as in the nightmare. So strange. She stood up in her cluttered room, her sketchbook open before her. She had this feeling of determination. With each careful stroke of her pencil, she recreated the image of the sign that had haunted her dreams, the memory of her nightmare fueling her action. Anna was a young woman shrouded in mystery. Ever since the tragic loss of her parents in a devastating accident when she was just 12 years old, she had been cast in a sea of loneliness, her only anchor the steadfast support of her aunt, who had raised her in the aftermath of the tragedy. But even her aunt's love could not shield Anna from the harsh judgment of the outside world. Set adrift in a desolate countryside that deemed her different and strange, she found solace in art, which she felt drowned out the cruel taunts of her neighbors. Despite her talent and passion, she remained an outcast in the eyes of those around her. The people of the neighborhood whispered dark rumors about her, spinning tales of witchcraft and sorcery, mostly because of the weird circumstance of her parents' death, and also because they naturally hated her. Yet amidst the isolation, Anna found a little hope in John, her colleague. He alone saw beyond the rumors and lies, recognizing the beauty and brilliance that lay hidden beneath Anna's quiet exterior. With his support, she found the courage to share her art with the world, earning a modest living selling her paintings to collectors and admirers. Anna stepped out of the bathroom after a warm bath to calm her. As she reached for her phone, she noticed John's name flashing on the screen. With a sigh of relief, she answered. "Hey, John," she greeted, her voice still shaky. "Hey, you okay?" She hesitated for a moment before admitting, "I had that nightmare again, but this time it was more intense." "I'm sorry to hear that, Anna," John replied sympathetically. "I'm nearby. I'll be with you in a few minutes." "Thanks," she said gratefully before hanging up. Immediately after the call, there was a knock on the door. "John, are you here already?" Since he was the only one that came in search of her, she went to the door and realized that there was no one at the door. Weird. Moments later, there was another knock at the door. Anna's heart skipped a beat as she cautiously approached this time. "Who is it?" "It's me, John," came the familiar voice from the other side. With relief, she opened the door. "Good morning," he greeted softly. "Morning," Anna replied, her voice lacking its usual warmth. and she decided not to mention the weird knock from earlier. John's brow furrowed with concern as he stepped inside. "You don't seem like yourself. Is everything okay?" She hesitated before confessing. I don't know what to do about these nightmares, John. I've tried everything, but they won't go away." John placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Maybe it's time to talk to your aunt about it. She might be able to help." Anna sighed. "I don't want to bother her with my problems." But Anna, after a moment of consideration, Anna nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right. I'll talk to her." Thanking John, she offered to make breakfast before they headed out, but John politely declined, mentioning he had eaten before coming over. Anna ate quickly, her mind still preoccupied with the conversation they were about to have with her aunt. Once she got back home from work, she wasted no time in dialing her aunt's number. "Hello, dear," Aunt Mary said cheerfully. "Hello, Aunt," Anna replied, relieved to hear her aunt's familiar voice. "I'm doing fine. How about you?" They exchanged pleasantries for a few moments before Anna gathered the courage to explain what she had been going through with the nightmares. Aunt Mary listened intently. "Anna, why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" Aunt Mary exclaimed. "I didn't want to worry you," Anna apologized. Aunt Mary's tone softened. "You should never keep something like this to yourself, dear. I'm here to help you. Come and visit me tomorrow morning. A solution will be waiting." "Okay, Aunt. Good night." "Good night, dear. Take care," Aunt Mary replied, before they both hung up. As night fell, Anna slipped into sleep, only to be ensnared by another terrifying dream. This time, the nightmare gripped her tighter than ever before. In the dream, Anna found herself running desperately through a graveyard, tombstones looming over her like silent sentinels. As she fell to the ground, a chilling voice echoed around her, seeming to come from every direction at once. "Anna." The voice was eerie, like the whispers of 1,000 ghosts calling out her name. Anna's heart pounded with fear as she looked up and saw a spectral figure emerging from the shadows. It wore ragged clothes stained with dark marks, and a rope hung loosely around its neck. Paralyzed with terror, Anna watched as the ghostly figure drew nearer, its face twisted into a horrifying mask of agony. The ghost's eyes locked onto hers, burning with an unearthly light. With a blood-curdling scream, Anna was engulfed by darkness, consumed by the terror of her own nightmare. Her eyes fluttered open. She found herself bathed in the morning light, but the terror of her nightmare still lingered like a dark shadow in her mind. With trembling hands, she reached for her sketchbook, just like every other day. She had to capture what she could remember from the dream before it faded from her memory. Though the face of the spirit had been obscured by shadows, Anna's hand moved feverishly across the page, etching out the haunting image of the ghostly figure that had haunted her sleep. She dressed hastily and set out for her aunt's house, which was close to an hour's journey. As she stepped into her aunt's cozy living room, she embraced her, soothing her nerves. "Anna, my dear, it's so lovely to see you," Aunt Mary exclaimed with a smile. "Thank you for having me," Anna replied. Aunt Mary led her to the couch, where she settled herself anxiously, her mind racing with questions. Aunt Mary's gave a gentle smile as she reached for a cup of coffee with an observing gaze. "Let's have some coffee first, dear. It'll help calm your nerves." Then she said inaudibly, "While we wait." Anna hesitated for a moment before accepting the cup. "Thank you." Anna's eyes fell upon the stack of old books resting on the coffee table. Her curiosity vivid, she began to flip through the pages. Anna couldn't help but voice her questions. "What are these books?" she asked, gesturing towards the ancient books. With a worried face, Aunt Mary replied, "These books contain the truth of our family's past." She began to sift through the pages, and Anna's eyes widened in disbelief as she recognized the symbols and the face of the shadow that had plagued her dreams. This is the same as in my nightmares," she whispered, her voice barely above a hush. "Yes, dear, and it's time you knew the truth about our family's history." Her aunt nodded. "Is there any history I'm unaware of?" Anna asked. Aunt Mary then explained the dark history behind the images. She revealed that the ghostly figure was their great-great-grandmother, wrongfully accused of poisoning townspeople through water and unjustly executed. Anna's blood ran cold as her aunt recounted the harrowing tale of their ancestors' persecution and demise, and she's been coming from each generation to hunt down and take revenge. Her words sent a chill down Anna's spine. Hunting them? For revenge? Anna repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief. How? Yes, my dear. She did so by possessing the souls of her descendants from each generation and using them to carry out her revenge on her enemy's generation by trying to wipe them out totally. As Aunt Mary and Anna were deep in conversation, a sudden knock on the door startled them. Aunt Mary muttered to herself about who it could be. Anna followed her to the door, where a group of people stood waiting. Aunt Mary introduced them to Anna, explaining that they were here to help banish the spirit that had been tormenting her. Before Anna could respond, the group began chanting. As the words filled the air, her vision blurred. The door that was already shut behind them creaked open, then shut again. Immediately, some whispers were heard in the air. When Anna regained consciousness, she found herself no longer in control of her body. A spirit had taken hold, speaking through her to the priest. "You cannot stop me," the spirit hissed. "I will not rest until I have avenged my death, eliminating every generation of that family till the last." The priest remained steadfast despite the spirit's threats, but as the ritual progressed, the spirit grew increasingly enraged, lashing out at the priest in a desperate attempt to regain control. With force, Anna ran out the building, rode home, put on fresh clothes, and set out again, then headed to her only friend's home. During all these periods, her aunt and the visitors she had were at her heels, but they were not fast enough. By the time they got to her house, she was already out. Guessing that she might be at John's place, they all headed there. On getting to his house, they met John's dead body lying in a pool of his own blood. It was later discovered that he was a last descendant of their ancestors' major enemy. Shocked, they searched all around for Anna, but she was nowhere to be found. Even after many years of search, no one knew where she was. The mystery of Anna's disappearance lingered like a haunting specter in the minds of those who knew her. One by one, members of the family began to experience strange occurrences. Objects moved on their own, eerie apparitions appeared in the mirrors, and the sound of phantom footsteps echoed through the empty corridors. For Anna, her nightmare had become a reality, a fate she could never escape. And as the years passed, her spirit lingered in the shadows, a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurked within the depths of the human soul. Anna's nightmare had become a chilling reality.